Assalamualaikum. Welcome to this video tutorial on ASP.NET 4.5 for students of King Faisal University and for others who want to learn ASP.NET. This is part 29 in this series and is entitled Login Control Using User-Defined Database. Before we proceed, let's first discuss some items that we're going to need in this tutorial, like session, which is a way to store information in the memory. In the example below, there are two web forms, 1 and 2. In the first web form, the session username was declared and it contains the value inside text box 1.text. This session was retrieved in web form 2 by simply calling session username. Another item that we need to discuss is the ExecuteScalar. Compared to execute non-query that may produce many records, ExecuteScalar is used to retrieve a single value. Let's start with an activity on sessions. We will create this website in C ASP Activity 29 that has this default web form that contains text box and hyperlinked. When text box is changed, we will set the session variable username to the text property of text box. The second web form is welcome that displays the welcome message including the username session. Let's create our website, file new website. This is Activity 29. First, let's create the default web form. And in the default web form, we're going to place a text box and a hyperlink. A hyperlink that has a navigate URL of welcome.aspx, something that we have not yet made. So when the text box is changed, we're going to create a session called username, and it will simply contain the value of the text property of text box 1. Okay, that's it. So now let's create the second web form, and this is the welcome web form. And all we need here is a label object where we will place the welcome message label 1 dot text is equal to welcome plus the session username. Okay, so let's go back to our default and go to our browser. If I type Ali and I press the enter key and then I click the hyperlink, welcome Ali. Now to proceed with our login control, we will now delete the hyperlink and text box controls as well as the event for the text box. Then we will create a folder app data with a SQL Server database user that has one table called users. In default web form, we will add a login control. Okay, so let's delete these objects and also this event. Then we will create an app data folder that has a SQL Server database called user. Then we'll create one table called users that has user ID, an identity, username, barker 50, and password, also barker 50. Let's update it. Now we can add some records. Ali, 123 ABC question mark. Mohammed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a question mark. So in the default web form, we're going to add a login control. You can see it from the login toolbox there below, login control. And then in our destination page, we're going to set welcome ASPX. Now, since we're going to use login control, remember the unobtrusive. So we have to add first the jQuery script, the unobtrusive validation. That's what I want to say. Okay, add a new folder. Let's call it scripts. And then inside it, we're going to add an existing item. We're going to look for jQuery there. Mine is in the downloads folder. And let's go to the source. We'll drag jQuery to the head. The next thing is that we're going to create the global ASAX. Okay, we're going to add it. And then in the application start, we have to type script manager dot script resource mapping dot add definition, and we're going to define our jQuery, which is a new script resource definition. Okay, and inside we're going to declare the path, which is equal to, I'll just drag it here. Okay, and then I'll delete some items. Okay, and then slash jQuery.js. Okay, that's it. So now we can create the methods for our login control. Let's double click it for the authentication. There is login one authenticate. And now we have to define the namespaces that we're going to need for database system dot web dot configuration using a system dot data and using system dot data dot SQL client, although we really don't need that. Okay, now let's make our connection string private string strcon is equal to web configuration manager that connection strings, which we don't have yet. So connection string. So to get our connection string, let's go back to our default, the server explorer. Let's try to drag the users table, but we don't need this, so let's just delete both. Let's go back to the code behind. Let's open web.config. There's our connection string. Copy and put it inside the double quotes. Okay, before we authenticate login one, let's create another method that has a boolean result. We'll call it user login, and it will have two parameters for the username and the password. Okay. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Let's start with the connection. SQL connection con is equal to new SQL connection and our string connection. Then our command, it's called command, is equal to new SQL command. So what are we going to put in this command? We'll use scalar, so we need only the username from the table users, where the username is equal to a parameter, let's call UN, and the password is equal to a parameter called PW. Okay, and we're going to use con. Okay, let's define the parameters that add with value. Let's start with the username, add UN, which is equal to the parameter here, UN, and the other one, parameters that add with value for at PW for the other parameter PW. Now we can open our connection and execute scalar, which we will place in a variable result string. We'll convert it to string, and then we can now execute scalar. There, scalar. So it will retrieve only one value. So what will be the return value? If the string, if the result is null or empty. So if the result is null or empty, then we have to return false. Otherwise, we're going to return true. Okay. Now we can go to authenticate. So let's again declare two variables for the username and password. Now the login control has this properties already with it. The username property. This is actually the value that the user will enter. And another one for the password. There, password. So these are the items that we are going to send as parameter to our method user login, UN, and PW. So that if the result is true, then that means the authentication is successful. So we have to e dot authenticated is equal to true. And of course, we can already create our session username, which is UN. Else, you can say that the authentication was a failure. So we'll make it false. Okay. So that's it. Just one more um, modification here so that it will not be loaded many times. We will load it only when it is not post back. Okay, so let's go to our default. Let's try it to our browser. Let's make it correct. ID 123 ABC question mark login. Welcome, Ali. Okay. So that's it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Masalama.